there's lots of events at Leeds Digital Festival, and it's quite an honour for us to be involved in one of them because A, it's a great thing to be a part of, but B, it's their 10-year anniversary, and it's quite a momentous one for us because of the fact that this year's theme is Tech Together, which I think really encapsulates what Tungsten does. They kind of bring together technology, creativity, and an opportunity for brands and agencies and all sorts of other stuff, and even other production companies as well. We're obviously going to talk about AI, and I would imagine that anybody that's been to any other Leeds DigiFest event this year has probably seen oodles of AI and oodles of opportunity and conversations around AI, but we're going to try and hold it and lock it down to content marketing. But the big question for me is whether AI is going to kill content or creativity or all of these things, and how we're positioning ourselves to either stop that from happening, but also to weaponize and empower what we are doing in that space. But I don't think I think you'd be living under a tree or under a bridge if you didn't have some kind of approach to AI in your agencies, in your brand, or anything like that, or AI strategies involved in any of these elements. And AI is going to be a contributor through the marketing funnel, as we know. And so I know we're a production company, but we have to expect and anticipate what you guys are going to be doing with AI and what the agencies are going to be doing with AI, and how it's going to be used all the way through that funnel, because it's affecting our budgeting, it's affecting how we as agencies pitch, it's affecting how we discover new consumers, how we interact with consumers, and eventually how we commission and create content. Press, there we go. We're all grappling with that problem. We're all grappling with how in this world we are going to integrate AI through anything, and how we're actually all going to talk together, especially when it's changing every minute. Sora 2, it might not be relevant to you guys, but it was huge news. Sora 2 dropped last night. And so immediately I had messages pinging up at 10 o'clock at night from Andy, who works at Tungsten Media, going, right, okay, we need to integrate those elements in here and link that bit in here and all the rest of this stuff. So it's a constantly changing thing, and we know that's going to be a constant change for Tungsten and for the rest of the guys. Now, I'm quite old. That's me in 2014. And I used to work a lot with computer vision, and I used to work quite a bit with YOLO, if any of you guys know it. YOLO 1 is a computer vision object tracking system. It's now YOLO 11, so that kind of gives you an idea of how long ago that was. But when we did this as part of Sticky Eyes for something called video SEO and analyzing video and visual elements from an SEO standpoint, this was like so fucking difficult, so incredibly difficult to get this working properly, and to get even the jankiest of janky option working, that we could then start categorizing and tagging object permanence. We started then doing reinforcements learning and all sorts of other stuff to try and get things working so that we could start classifying visual content in the same way that we classify from an SEO point of view, keyword tags and stuff like that. It was a nightmare to do. And nowadays, this is a native feature in ChatGPT. This is a native feature in ChatGPT now for everyone right now. You could do something that took teams of specialists so long, like months, to get right, and even then it was shit. To get it right and get it working, this is now just something that's normal for everyone. I think that is just one little example of how the democratization of mass intelligence is really leveling the playing field for SMEs, for unicorns, one-man bands, and for consultants and all sorts of things, and for production companies as well. It's crazy how this is happening. But it's not just for nerds. This is also, from our perspective, looking at, ours in marketing people, the consumer adoption to that. How are consumers relating to that sort of thing? This is just a Sequoia Capital thing, and they were way off. Half of this stuff is already ready, and they're saying 2030. It's almost prime time ready now. But the point being that we anticipated that there'd be a longer shift for people to adopt it, whereas actually consumers are adopting AI discovery and AI support much, much quicker than we anticipated. And now, even more so, offsetting tasks to agentic interactions and agentic control. That's crazy. That is absolutely mental. From a stat point of view, 50% of search will likely have some kind of AI assistant or agentic assistant by 2027. I promise you that will be much earlier, but let's say 2027 for the sake of it. And when we're looking at AI protocols and stuff across major large models, agentic commerce in 2026 is going to be massive because of the fact that they've just started to align all of the protocols and the procedural measurements of that. But what that means is, as content marketers, what that means is that we need to start making content that is session aware and context driven almost immediately, because they're looking for it in that way. And whether it's a human doing a search, a robot doing a search, or whatever, or a hybrid mix of both, those kind of conversations through the funnel now have to speak to multiple different avenues. And that'd be weird for a production company to tell you that, but that's kind of the fact that we're in. So therefore, we need to start thinking like that. If we look back just over the last couple of years, for us, but also from other industry specialists as well, we know that content requests, content demands have quadrupled. For us, that's a brief coming in that actually just basically it's 4 times bigger than it actually used to be 2 years ago, kind of thing. That's a fact for us. But why is that? Part of it is probably some AI slop, and we're fighting against new platform adoption and death of platforms in the same quick way, and also people who are going through that funnel, that messy middle of decision, and kind of getting stuck in consideration. And therefore, then we as marketers, not the production company, but we as marketers are kind of having to seed more content out all of the time in order to maintain that share of shelf or capture the sales and the conversions. So that's the bit that's the paradox that is breaking from a production point of view and from a creative agency point of view, that's breaking the traditional models of how we make money. We cannot service it in the same way that we continue to do at those kind of scales and at that kind of uncertainty and lack of forecasting. And that's kind of what's driven the event today. The kind of hybrid production approach is what we're going to talk about quite a lot. But actually, if we take out production and just a hybrid content marketing approach, and together is the main point, because I think when we start to look at it all together, that's when we get the most exponential gains. And so to give you a quick example of that, when we start talking about AI, it's weird because I've been in AI for quite a while. It's really literally agnostic. And when I talk about agnosticity, word? I don't know. When we start talking about agnostic AI, I mean the LLMs or the data structuring or the data mapping or the context relevance or the natural language processing, all of the nerd AI bits actually are completely interoperable between whether your industry is agriculture or farmer or law or an agency or marketing. It doesn't matter. It all talks the same. And then the output from that is also completely agnostic, whether that is visuals, whether that is audio, whether that is 3D, whether that is written content or insight research and all the rest of it. They're basically, it's the same language. And so that's the opportunity for us to all talk together because we're all kind of talking the same language now. It's just different results. Traditionally, if a brand wanted more pictures for e-commerce, they may go to a photography studio. If they wanted a new brand film or something else, they might go to a video studio. If they wanted some CGIs of something or whatever, they may go to CGI, or experiential, they may go to an events company. And these all used to sit in silos. They all used to sit separately, which means you have 4 briefs, 4 different outputs, 4 different risks for consistency and stuff like that. What if when they all come together, you take the best bits of the process from each one of them and overlap them? And that's the cool bit that we're using AI for, whereas in Tungsten. And what I'll do is when Andy comes up, he'll show you exactly what that looks like in an actual commercial project. When you look at it agnostically and you say, right, okay, what if we took the pipeline of CGI and mixed that in with video? this is where you get some really weird shit happen, where when you record something, you get depth maps or normal maps. When you start to link in video, you get the ability to relight it in post. And all of those things happen because not just the AI, but because we can do it in the middle. So we don't actually have to, we press record, we still capture it the same way with the same process. But actually when we press record and do that, it spits out all of the other elements, which can then be validated and tested and created in, so that actually the next time you see it, it's just in the timeline, ready to go. Which is really weird, because that would never have happened before. But actually, those kind of advances and those kind of advantages are what is making this capability exponential in growth. It's not just step-by-step benefits here. We're kind of leaping up and going, you know what, we could do this for that. We could do this at that scale because of the way that we're approaching this. Yeah, so to wrap it up a little bit here, the consumers are changing their behaviors. I know this, we know this. They are going to start to expect different things. So as marketers, we are going to have to change the way that we do things. We're going to have to adapt our approach. And I don't know whether I want to know, but I hope content in its traditional forms isn't dead, but I know it is going to be different. And I know we need to make it differently as well. And so that's me, but that's also what I think we're going to talk about now. Andy, do you want to come up and take us through an actual project?
Yeah, nice one, James. That was a really nice intro and a very warm crowd, which is great. How's everybody doing? Everyone good? Yeah? Very nice. So yeah, James just gave us that beautiful intro about what we think content is doing and the hybrid approach, and my job, to keep it short and sweet, is to show you how we implement that throughout our production process. So we're going to take a case study of a client that we worked for called Power Sheds. They make sheds. And we'll watch the ad together first, and then I'll break down some of those workflows, and we'll see if we can all get a better idea of how hybrid production is really put into motion. So let's watch that together, and make sure I don't fall downstairs. Yeah, we're good.
Power to the garden mess haters. Power to the fresh-faced newlyweds. And power to the mountain bike hoarders. Power to all you space-poor creatures. Thanks to PowerSheds. It's simpler than ever to choose, order, and assemble a shed that'll last for years. PowerSheds.com. Buy, build, and done.
Okay, nice. Short and sweet, nice and easy. And so, if I was to ask for a quick show of hands, who here thinks, other than the obvious stuff, that they could have quickly told you what was traditional, what was virtual, what was CGI, what was AI? Quick show of hands. You could have told the difference really quickly? Okay, yeah, absolutely. But mostly, I would hope, if we've done our job right, that it's generally, it feels like it's quite cohesive. So, what I'll do now then, and we'll keep it short, is break down for you how we would go through the hybrid approach and why you would even want to do that. Because of course, you can still do the traditional approach. What are we gaining by even doing this? Because it's great to talk about it, but we need to show it. So some of it's going to be familiar. You'll have heard about these little bits here and there, and you're like, well, yeah, I've seen previs or I've seen that, but it's the synergy. It's when you take all these little milestones and you add them together and you start to create efficiency and creative flexibility. So we would start in previs. We would start with an animatic, which most everybody would do. And then if we know we're going to work in 3D, we might build a rough 3D. But the point of that is that we then know exactly what's going to be physical on our sets and exactly what's going to be virtual or CGI. Because once we can start nailing that down, we can give ourselves massive amounts of flexibility. We can focus not just what we think is going to be right or what is traditional, and because it's traditional, it's just done that way. So let's just do it that way, and put ourselves into a rigid box. The idea of hybrid is we want to give us and our clients as much creative flexibility as possible. Even if the budget is exactly the same, how can we go further with what we've got? So it's just an example. It makes stuff like relying on the weather We don't really need to do that so much. I'm sure everybody here has had a day on a shoot where the weather has absolutely trashed you, and you've either had to do another day, you've had to spend more money, or it's just not turned out how you wanted it to, and it's the worst. So the practices that we have here allow us to really control that sort of stuff. So we worked through previs, and we know exactly what we want to shoot, how we're going to shoot it, and how much we're going to make real and whatnot. So let's just have a quick look at this shot here, which is the bedroom shot. Again, I hope most of you thought it was a full real shot, but the lady talent in the front that's here, and all the boxes, and the bed frame, just that bit there is real. Everything in the background is fake. And we would have had our amazing set stylist, Andrea. I think she's there in the crowd. Hello, Ange, wave you up. She would have got these boxes for us, and we would have taken those. And what's really nice, again, to make this hybrid, is rather than thinking, right, now we're going to have to go build an entire bedroom set and remake all of those things, Andrea can work with us, show us those boxes, and we can 3D scan them and just put them in there using AI. We can build on that in 3D and put them through the bedroom. So we're not only, through hybrid, we're using more tools, but we're not leaving freelancers behind either. People like set stylists, where did they go when you get into the virtual world? We still want to bring them along with us. So that allows us to have Andrew's genius and vision of that creativity and still push it in there. Let us go further and farther than we ever could do before. So that's really nice. And all there was in the front of there, in the real set, in this exact space, it's just a bed and a few boxes. We didn't have to build an entire set. We got that shot done. And there's a reverse of that shot that is there. It's hard to see. But that is literally the same thing. We're doing it on a virtual screen. We can spin the camera, pull a door in, get the shot, pull the door out. That's super efficient. It means we don't have to build multiple sets. And that moves on then to this living room shot. Again, the entire background is virtual. So on this shot on this screen, which means all we had to do was say, right, move the wall out, bring in the sofa, put the bike next to it, get the shot, there it is, get it done, and it's out. And you start thinking about this stuff and you go, wow, how efficient can we be if we're doing all that? Something like this, just as a traditional shoot, you've got an above-the-line campaign, 30-second ad. We had 6 idents, so 6-second videos. All of them had to be different scenarios set by the client, and we had to have social campaigns out there as well. You could be talking a 4 to 5 day traditional shoot to build your sets, put them back down again. Where are you going to put all these sheds that you want to have in the locations? What locations are you going to use? So doing it this method, where we can kind of blend what's virtual, what's AI-driven in the background there, we shaved off about 33% of the time. We went down to a 3-day shoot. We only needed one little location, and all of our interior shots pretty much were shot in the studio right here. But we were just so flexible with the tools we were using, we were able to do it, and we could go further for the client. So what's also nice about that, and again, hybrid and how hybrid brings flexibility, every shot we take, we call it a proxy. So it gets taken from the camera, a low-res version goes into the cloud, then an AI of ours looks at the shot, categorizes the shot, says what it looks like, what it's about, and then literally every take we're taking, that we're doing on the day, the editor is getting those shots right there, right then. So they can be building the edit out. Usually on a traditional shoot, be like, let's see the dailies, let's just have a look at what we got. Whereas now we can actually have our edits ready built, ready to go, and the editor's already in there. So we're squeezing the efficiency even more out of that as well, which is really nice. So let's have a quick look then more at the post area. And so you'd think that this is where AI really shines. Everybody knows image generation, video generation. James said about Sora 2 coming out. There's something brand new every single day. But AI has been shining for us throughout the entire process. We've used it in every single section to create different elements, to create different animatics, knowing exactly what I want to shoot. But a really simple one that we like to use with our own in-house models. And the reason why we use in-house models, our own kind of trained and built large language models, is that anything we create, that Tungsten creates, is ownable by us. If you use something from ChatGPT, Midjourney, Kling, whatever else you want to use, anything you use by them, you can't copyright it because it was created through them. It's basically in the public domain. Anything we create, open source, can be owned by us. And it's a real, finicky factor that a lot of people get stuck with. So, one of our shots here is in the shed, and she's looking through the back. You can see we've got a green screen behind her. Simply ask the AI, can you move the green screen? Put her on a suburban British garden, and let's see what that looks like. But why this is so cool is I can sit with the director next to us and the editor if I want to, generate an image in 10 seconds, automatically cut them out, and him go, oh, why is there a fence in front of the doorway? Can we remove that? And I can go, yeah, cool, let's okay, remove the doorway. Remove that, and we'll keep iterating. Within 5 to 10 minutes, we could have been somewhere that we would have had to take ages to go back and forth trying to find the right shot on stock photos, or can I perspective warp it a little bit or something to make it work? And the AI just automatically makes the lighting work. We take the shots we shot on location and we feed that into there, and it automatically knows what to do with that. So that's just like, I wish I could talk about all of them, but we don't have time, but that's one beautiful little way that in post you are speeding up what is going on. Now, one of the best parts for me about this is that we can scan, if we go to a real location, we can scan that location. And if a client comes back to us 6 months down the line and says, oh, I'd really love to shoot in that house again, and I want to do that seasonal campaign. It has to look exactly how we had it before, all that sort of stuff. With AI, that's super possible, and with a virtual screen, we can also do that. So we could say, yep, we'll take that scanned house that we did, or even the bedroom that we did, or the living room that we did, or anything else, and within an hour, we could pull that scene back up, and we could already be shooting some brand new content for the client. So not only are we being more efficient about how we're shooting, we're being more efficient thinking forward as well. How can we go back to reuse the content? And as a director of photography, consistency is just incredible in that sort of way. I can be consistent, shoot where we are, and have a campaign over the year that feels, cohesive. One of the things we do with clients is AI governance, which basically means with our own proprietary AIs, we work with clients to say, be very transparent about the AI that we use, and everybody, and I'm sure each person here has a different line, is the ethical line of where you want to use AI. Like, how far do you want to go with it? Do you want to generate people, or do you want to just make little tweaks in the background? So everyone's different, and that's what's really nice about this flexible approach. If you want to start at level 1 and just generate AI versions of something and leave it at that, then absolutely fine. If you need to go all the way up to level 5, no, we don't want to use AI here. We want to keep it organic, real, natural. That's what our brand stands for. Of course, we can do it in an absolute traditional way. And that's what's so beautiful about this approach. Again, it's everything it comes back to is flexibility and creative freedom. That's what we're trying to implement throughout this entire approach. So, yeah, hybrid production itself is just invisible technology amplifying creativity. It's the sets that we don't have to build. It's the multitude of props that we don't have to send somebody out for hours getting. It's the locations, the extra locations we don't need. It's the permits we can forget about. It's big one is reducing the carbon footprint of the things we do, which for lots of agencies is a massive thing. So even what should be a simple shed ad can be enhanced silently through technology. Yeah. So I think just to bookend this little part, we'll watch the very short behind the scenes video that will just hopefully give a little nice summary for what I've spoken about here. And then we should have a really nice idea of what hybrid approach is, and we can all have a chat about it after. So I'll just put this BTS on for us.
One main TVC, 4 idents, all in one production window.
It's a lot.
Solution, hybrid production.
Bad injury.
We built a strategic pipeline, mixing location, studio, virtual production, CGI, even AI all together.
We've seen strong growth in Q2 with exports looking healthy in all geographies.
The exception of
Virtual production was ideal for tighter interior scenes where we needed more production flexibility.
This is the hallway. It shouldn't be like storage. They need a shed.
Like this hallway, which we built in our studio. The outside beyond the door, Unreal Engine, or the kitchen on the reverse shot, also Unreal. This meant we could build one hallway with infinite rooms to shoot into. But we didn't use VP for everything. We leaned on a location shoot for some of the outside scenes.
You're lucky you two, eh?
And the sheds were built in our car park to save time and simplify travel logistics. By offsetting the art department and production crew schedules, we were able to save hours of turnaround time. Clever, right?
That's it.
Well, we're doing the piece from the webcam now.
and a couple of other countries in that region.
We used green screen too, generating the over-the-shoulder backgrounds using AI. We pulled frames from the location take to feed into our AI image-to-image model and generate a background that matched the lighting and composition captured on the shoot, and cut down post time without cutting corners.
Okay, that was pretty smart.
Some bits were even fully CGI, because sometimes the smartest move is knowing when to keep it real and when to take it apart in VFX, because that is the crucial thing about hybrid production. It isn't about one fancy techie solution, it's about blending expertise and approaches together, so you can't tell which is which. It's about the right tools on the right scenes for the right reasons. That's how you get efficiency, control, and creativity that actually delivers. Want to see how these kinds of workflows could elevate your next brief? Drop us a message or drop by our studio to see it in action.
Hopefully that gives you a good little idea of hybrid production and how we approach it. And I think, James, where are you there? I think we'll bring the panelists up now, give us a couple of minutes just to get everybody sat and situated, and we'll have a talk, yeah?
Sounds good.
Thank you very much.
So with the panel bit, I thought it'd be worth us bringing together someone from almost every phase in that journey that we've talked about this morning and that we typically work with. So we've got Andy from a production perspective, we've got John from a director perspective, we've got Chris from an agency perspective, and we've got Johnny, who is a CMO from the brand perspective. And we're going to basically ask the same sort of questions that we have and try and find the problems together and then, yeah, just chat about that. If anybody has any questions, please just shout up. We don't have mics for everybody, so just shout louder as we go. Do I need to press this one here? Nope. Never mind. Forget that one. You didn't see that. Should we start off by introducing ourselves? John, do you want to go first?
Yeah, my name's John. I'm a director, direct teleads, basically. Well, a mixture of things between traditional sort of advertising, also lots of social stuff, and sort of seep into PR and below the line as well.
I'm Chris. I'm a creative director from agency, so we do a lot of brand work, some advertising, venturing further and further into the marketing space as well. So yeah, this is it's going to be a good chat, I think.
Johnny Ross. I have a marketing agency. I'm also a fractional CMO. Probably 70% of my time is working with clients as a CMO, so sort of in between client and agency, and but deeply rooted in search engine optimization, SEO, from many, many years ago. So that's my passion and background.
Yep, and super briefly, I'm Andrew, because I didn't say it already, co-founder of Tungsten Media, and we're a production company, strategic content company, and honestly our main job is to innovate and to find brand new ways to create incredible content for clients. So yeah.
All right, let's get into it. So when I spoke at the beginning, I was like, is content dead? Does content, Johnny, do you think content actually has value anymore? In an AI world, does it work from a brand perspective?
I think it's got incredible value, without question, but I think fundamentally we need to switch how we think about content, and I think it's more about thinking about it as a compound asset, and so by that I mean that it's part of a bigger picture, and it's not a disposable used for a campaign, but it's part of a jigsaw, if anything, that's the so it's the thinking about it and the approach, and it's that modular way of using content so that you can get more use out of it, and it's becoming more of a not just a strategic asset that's going to give you brand and trust, but also going to give you longevity. It needs to be able to perform for that crazy short world we live in, where something only lasts for a few hours, but also needs to perform even a year or two later and be part of that mix.
And that's probably quite difficult from a linear perspective to get that right. Chris, what do you think about that in terms of like content? What do you think about the future of content from an agency perspective?
I think sort of similarly. Is my mic on? I don't feel like I'm as loud as
is the mic on?
I feel very loud.
Anyway, I don't think it's dead. I mean, there's a lot of shite out there, right? Generally, and people have produced shite for a long time, and AI will produce a lot of shite as well. The value then becomes the good stuff. Do you know what I mean? So I think we still need to influence people. We still want to inspire people. We still need to tell people about things and bring them on sort of brand journeys. So that's not going to go anywhere. For me, it's more about finding the ideas and the approaches that are going to cut through and bring more value to the content, and sort of potentially starting to see it less of a disposable asset. I mean, from my perspective, sort of from a branding first perspective. That's been most of my sort of design history, and we've always come at things from a long-term perspective. When you go through, when you're on a journey to rebrand with someone, you're thinking about 5 to 10 years rather than the quick win sort of marketing cycle. So naturally, as we're venturing into that marketing space, we're applying that kind of thinking anyway, which I think also brings more value to the ideas.
All right, so let's look at a shorter cycle. John, let's talk about it from a typical above-the-line perspective. What does valuable content look like now?
Audiences still care about stories. I made an ad once for our old company. It was like, audiences care about stories. What none of us have talked about. You can talk about AI, you can talk about cameras and tech and whatever else. Actually, none of it matters. The story and the thing that resonates matters. So if you're going to go and use generative AI to make something, then that's fine, but there's still usually a director or somebody that's thinking about the story behind it. And I don't think humanity is ever going to move away from that. To your point, you have human-made shit, you've got AI-made shit. Shit's shit. It doesn't matter. Again, it also doesn't matter above the line, below the line. I think we all know through the line. Let's talk about all the lines. Content is merging, content is making, above and below the line merge together. Brand building and campaigns are in the same ballpark these days. You've got to think of it all in an integrated way. What comes through all of that? Story. The story's never going to change.
Yeah. Andy, any further uptick on that?
Yeah, of course. I think I resonate with what you're saying there, John, quite a lot. There's something interesting when you think about if a story was made with AI and something inside of you is like, there's no soul in there. Like you feel it, it. There's something that just feels quite off about it. And when there's someone who's been behind it, that's when you take it on board a bit more. And I really think about, a lot of people, there's all the fear-mongering about AI taking over and all these sort of things, but everyone said the same thing about digital photography when it first came in. Everyone said the same thing about CGI when that first came in. It was, oh my God, we're not going to do real shoots anymore. CGI is going to take over everything, and CGI is just another tool in the box that we use. And for us, and this is what I believe, is that AI will just be another tool in the box. We'll go, right, okay, here's the shoot that we're doing. We're going to want a little bit of this. We're going to put a little bit of that in there, and this will allow us to do this over here. So in no way do I think we'll lose any sort of the humanity, the story. I think it will be another tool in the box. So does content have value? Massive. I think it will have more value with the more power we get to use it. So.
I used to work with Chris at Bram and Brass years ago, decades ago. I used to do the exact same thing there. I was CGI there, so you'd bring up CGI apple and a real apple, and you go, which one's real? Which one's real? And it was always kind of like that conversation of. Could I fool someone? And I think we're in the exact same cycle here with AI. Can I fool someone? Blah, blah, blah. But now it's just more accepted that certain elements might be CGI or whatever. Nobody really questions that. So I think we'll probably end up in the same kind of landscape of AI as well. To look at some data then, I mentioned the increase in content demand. So every brief that we get, Johnny, every brief that we get from brand or agency is 4 times higher, 4 times bigger than it was a few years ago. And unfortunately, some of them are not much more money. So how do you then align value of each bit of content? And how do we almost create the stuff that we're creating? How do we keep that storytelling focus right? How do we keep that storytelling message on point when we're creating 4 times more at almost the same value?
I think it's more around using the technology to personalize things. So I fully agree with the story, and I don't think whilst there's a load of crap being created, I don't think creative necessarily is the problem, as long as you stick with the principles. I fully agree that it's got to be a story. But in terms of the value, it's about getting more assets out of whether it be the shoot or whether it be the whatever's going on at the time, to still tell the same story, but to engage with different audiences in different ways, so that story relates to them. And so what you're doing is getting more out of it at the same time, and personalizing each asset in a way. One of the problems with AI is that, take paid for example. So the moment paid drops, that's when your asset can sort of totally evaporate as well. But look at Google Ads, and you can sort of create much more personalized audiences and personalized campaigns. If you don't personalize that content, then all you're actually doing is just throwing more money away, because you've got this fantastic personalized audience, but you're using the same piece of content. So I think to get more value out of it, it's about having multiple pieces of content that still telling the same story, but in a way that each audience is going to engage. So I think it's more about getting more out of it at the time.
Well, just to add on to that, I think it's a beautiful example of that, because personalised content, I think, is part of the future of being able to tell a story, but tweak it to each person. We like to use this example of, if I ask all of you to think about a person on a bike, everybody's got an idea in their head right now of somebody on a bike. Now let me ask you to put a Domino's hat on that person. I guarantee every single person here has got a Domino's person. They know what it looks like. It's the blue hat with that logo. But you've all got a slightly different variation in your head about what that person looks like, based on your habits, based on the things you do, based on everything else, what ethnicity you are. If there's a different ethnicity, you might think of a Eurasian market or just a Western market. And with the tools that we're getting now, being able to tell your story, but quickly adapt it into these different variations is what's going to make that content, just like you said, throw so much further and be much more relatable in that sense as well. It's just a beautiful way of us being able to do that now so quickly. I think traditionally, you could shoot it 20 times if you're going to do that, but now with some of the Gen AI we can do, I can give you each version of that Domino's person in whatever city we need or whatever place we want, whatever weather, what's selling right now, what's not selling right now, anything. So yeah, I fully agree with that.
So if we're getting loads more, but the budget isn't changing, Chris, why do you think that is? What's the biggest pinch point? Why are brands not giving more money to this?
Well, I think it's probably a continuation.
Solve all of our
That's a load of questions.
I think it's it's a continuation of what's been happening for a very long time. Like, technology has always developed and it's always introduced efficiencies, and people then get used to the idea of having more for less. I think it's a challenge for people who have maybe traditionally priced on output. So I think, it's a business model conversation in a way. If you price on outputs, then you're going to get really squeezed. If you price on other things and have different types of conversations to put the value in other areas, and I think it's a different, you can approach it from a different angle. So going back to the story point, I think there's massive value in story, there's massive value in judgment, and the sort of the skills that fill in the gaps between all of the stuff that's generated, the director, the editor, the creative with the ideas. If you're able to tell a story of value in that space, then it sort of slows the diminishing cycle in a way. It doesn't stop budgets being squeezed, but it does allow for better conversation as to maybe why one thing that was one price at one point in time shouldn't necessarily drop as a result of this, because you're able to position the value in the skills in between rather than just the outputs, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Is your mic on? Is it the pack? Is it on?
I did turn it on.
Sorry, technical difficulties. 1 second.
It says on.
Yeah.
There was a light.
Yeah.
It's not muted.
Is it on time? Okay. We'll just carry on.
All right, so if we're squeezing things from a budgetary perspective, what happens if we squeeze things from a time perspective? all this stuff is really fun and interesting, and it's lovely to see people adapt to it and adapt to it. That's one of my favourite things, is seeing a director or someone go, "Fuck, this is great!" Like
that's what happened the first time I walked in here.
Yeah, the Power Sheds was another one as well. Like, the director had never shot VP. We walked him through it, and now he's doing it all the time. It's literally that simple. Monkey see, monkey do, monkey want. They get used to using it, and then it de-risks it. If we're reducing all of the timelines of these things because of the fact that we need to create more content, or we can't find the budget, or whatever, what does timeline reduction do to risk-taking and creativity? John, I'm throwing that one at you.
You're talking to a man who shot something yesterday morning and spent yesterday afternoon editing it, and that wasn't anything to do with AI. That was just dicks. Timelines have been horrendous for ages. I think there is a problem in this idea that we need more content, because I actually don't think more and therefore reduced timeline is the right answer to be the story guy in the corner. I think it's about relatability. You know, especially I sat in a report launch of. I'm going to come back to your question. I sat in a report launch about Gen Alpha the other day, and the BBC have investigated, you know, what the trends with Gen Alpha. Gen Alpha can see through all of the stuff that we're all talking about to quite a large degree. So Gen Alpha are like, their generation finished last year, so they're anyone from, I think, oldest is maybe 12 or 14, can't quite remember, and the youngest is obviously 1. But they are using content in a completely different way to any generation that has been around before. They view sort of TikTok and all of the social channels like we maybe used to view 5 channels on television. So they're coming at it in a completely different way. Therefore, they want relatability. They want a bit of brain rot, they'll go to TikTok. They want long-form content. They like the brands that we used to buy into, so the Friends, we wouldn't have called them brain rot back in the day. That was just Hollyoaks Omnibus on a Sunday. But, you know, that's what that generation are looking for. So the idea that, final bit on that, and you look at YouTube episodes are getting longer and longer. Attention spans are supposedly getting longer again. We're not in this super short form world anymore. We're in a hybrid of everything. So this idea that we should put out more, I don't necessarily think is the right answer. To put out more, to better content. To your point, Andy, of let's use Gen AI to replace an actor to make it relevant to a market, but use the same story, completely agree. But I also think there's a question of what we haven't talked about yet is using AI in completely different ways. In the pre-production process, how are we ideating with smaller teams because we've got less budget? So is it about timeline? Is it about budgets? Therefore crew. You know, how can we use AI in different ways? And that's how I see it. You know, I use Gen AI for storyboards. I use AI to inspire ideas at the beginning of a process. We'll still build out a pitch deck in a normal way that you guys would probably not like, because it's very manual. But yeah, you know, so how are we using AI to shrink timelines? Well, it's using it at every part of the production process. And then in post, you've seen what you guys can do and what you can do on set with it now, and super quick edits and all the rest of it. So what are we doing to reduce timelines? I think the answer to that is use AI across the board, not just in a generative way. And use it to create efficiencies, not just to think, I need to use Gen AI to create more stuff and to make it really quickly, because that really is a race to the bottom of us all. I did a campaign last year. I delivered 140 assets, 140 videos off the back of this campaign, because they were in every format, with and without subtitles, with a logo bug in the corner, because the agency couldn't make a decision as to what they wanted. It's getting rid of that. It's being more intentional, more direct with what you're creating, and using all the tools at your disposal, knowing that none of those things have so far put me out of a job. Because story is still the thing that matters. I feel like I'm going to be like sits here and chats about story all day.
No, it's fine.
It's great.
It's good. I mean, the other thing is, like, when you talk about AI, as in, like, most people do this as well. They say, like, AI is going to do this bit, or AI takes control of the storyboards, or something else. It's almost like when we're back in the SEO days, I would use like Dribble or something like that to find inspiration, but I would tag carefully, which is sort of keyword SEO work. So it's just, it's always been there, and certainly from a post perspective, machine learning and things like that, all of the machine learning I was showing you there, we were using that to shortcut just fucking watching a shed load of videos and going, what time did this product appear in this process? So these things have been around for decades. It's just now we wrap all of those statements up in AI. It's AI is just this bit now. It's not, it's just, and
take Photoshop.
You can do it.
Photoshop now has AI built into it.
Yeah.
Are we going to say that using Photoshop is now using AI? A lot of the time, if you're the layman in an art department, you probably go, oh, I'll just Photoshop this. That's still the same thing. It just has an AI plugged into it. I think examples like that are exactly how we're all using these tools now. I think the blanket phrase of AI almost needs its little chunks underneath it. It needs a better understanding, I guess, because to the layman, AI is Gen AI, and we know that it's not. I think that's the education piece.
For sure, yeah.
So straight on from that then, almost every brief we get, direct from brand, and I'm coming straight back at you, Johnny, every brand brief we get, our MSA now has to include how we're using Gen AI, what elements will be AI, what elements won't be AI, and how we align the governance, validation, all of these components, and now heavily QC, because of the fact that if you can automate certain things, you need to ensure that the output is reflective of that. Do brands trust AI? Does it sound like Barnum? Is it like,
yeah, I mean,
we use AI, darling.
You know, it's a magic show, isn't it? There's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and that's a problem. I think some brands do, some brands don't. I think the biggest issue is the skills gap inside the brand. I think that brands that have got teams that are more forward-thinking, more experimental, playing with this, that have even an experimental budget, are trusting it more, whereas brands that haven't quite got there yet are the ones that are not trusting it. You've then also got an unfair playground between the brand, the client, and the agency, because the client's sort of expecting AI. The ones that trust it are expecting it, but not willing to pay for the learning, and so you've sort of got that going on as well. But going back to the trust, I think it's difficult. So what agencies or production companies need to do is be way more transparent, and be more open. Not suggesting people in the room aren't, but across the industry, but more so, brands need to have that experiment and upskill teams, bring people in that have experience. Not to bring it in-house, but to know what can and can't be done, and open the mind. And I think the thinking has to change to get the trust.
The innovation thing is quite interesting. This is a live conversation. We are literally having a live conversation this week about a client project. I won't say any of the client stuff, don't worry. But about them expecting it to be AI driven, but then reducing the budget to reflect that, and then saying to Chris, the agency Chris is working with, oh, well, we'll see it when it's done. And you're like, well, actually, from an innovation perspective, we have to build it to make it be done. We can't just do that. And it's not expected. We're not building loads of AI opportunities here and just waiting for somebody to buy one off the top. Chris, our brands are your clients being more cautious with innovation. How the hell are we going to deal with that?
I think, well, we're seeing a real mix, to be honest. I think there's a load of clients who genuinely have just got no idea, and they're not talking about it at all. But then on the flip side, you've got the example that you just mentioned there, where I think because AI is such a part of the conversation, there's an expectation that it is really easy, and we can just do that now, so just go and do that now. Not realizing that to achieve certain things, you've got to plug multiple components together, and someone's got to figure that all out. I think interestingly you mentioned about the skills gap brand side, agencies are struggling with that as well. I mean, you've always got the people who are really interested, who will kind of delve and figure things out and try things at home, which is amazing. But I think just the speed and the explosion of tools and the fact that the tools are really starting to diversify now into sort of specialist areas is a lot to keep on top of. So every day we're having conversations around, could we do that with AI? Can't we do that with AI? If we can, what is the tool? Maybe it's this one that we've not had a look at yet, and then we speak to you or we speak to someone else who knows more about it than we do, and they reel off another 6 things that we should look at. So keeping on top of it all so that we can have the live conversations with brands in the moment that they're saying or giving, putting an idea across is a real challenge, because we're like, yeah, probably, maybe. And it's going to be a little while, I think, before that sort of settles down. So it's a real pinch point at the moment.
That's where that hybrid thing's changing, isn't it? That's where trying not to leave money on the table, trying not to leave opportunity on the table, and missing things that if you don't know, and that's fine. But missing an opportunity at a certain point it's not about dropping the creative or changing the creative approach, but it's saying, actually, if we just tweak that tiny little bit, this opens this door to all of this. And that tiny little bit at that point may cost absolutely nothing in both time and budget to do.
I would say the flip side of that, though, is the ignorance within agency land on the other side of it, which is a creative in an agency pulls up in it, and this has happened to me. I'm triggered by it, obviously. And Andrea is as well, because Andrea was also on that shoot. But when an agency pulls up an AI image of something on this particular issue, it was a breakfast cereal brand who created this lovely image of milk flowing in a very unrealistic way, but agency had already sold it into brand. We had to work out how the hell you do it. It wasn't with AI in the end, it was with traditional 3D CG, but there's both sides of this coin of, yeah, all right, there's money left on the table because there's things that haven't been explored, but there's also people using it just in a completely insane way. And then often my job is to pick things up obviously later down the line, and my job is to make things happen that have been sold. And sometimes it's impossible.
Oh, the amount of times James has been talking with a client and gone, we can do that, and up to me, you can do that.
But then it's the same, isn't it? Like I've the number of times that you open a brief and the reference is M&S food.
Yeah.
And you go, for fuck's sake, we're on a loser from the beginning. There's no way you've pitched in something that's 150k, and you've given us
15.
a fifth of that, if that. Yeah, exactly. You're losing there, and that's got nothing to do with AI. That's just understanding the mechanics of the whole process of both creative and production. And how do we make that cheaper? How do we make a solution that works for smaller SMEs? So we're not always talking about big brands, Aldi's and whatnots. We're talking about SMEs as well.
Yeah, well, innovation. Innovation's that's the word first. Innovation is the word. Problem solving being the second one. I feel like me and my business partner, Si, we came up from a world where we were the freelancers to start, and then we was like, let's build this into a business. And so we kind of came from the ground up, not from the agency side. We came from the ground up. It was like, okay, how do we run a production company? And so we just naturally had to solve those problems. And it's innovating and being more efficient with those processes. So how can I put that so simply? 10 years ago, if you wanted to, let's say roto brush, meaning where you cut somebody out in a video shot, let's say you want to cut a person out, 10 years ago, that person would have had to do it frame by frame, bit by bit, every brush, blah, blah, blah. Now, with DaVinci Resolve or Adobe After Effects, you click a button, AI sits there and goes, okay, yep, press play, and it will do pretty much 99% of that job. So what would have taken us hours or even a day or more just to cut somebody out of a shot could be achieved now in literally seconds.
What's the plugin called in DaVinci? What's the effect called?
Magic Mask.
Magic Mask. Because it's magic. It's not AI. It's magic.
Yeah. So it's innovative. Yeah, exactly. If somebody comes to us with a fifth of a budget of what Morrison's go, we use innovation, expertise, and knowledge. And what I think is important is synergism between different techniques. this is, obviously this is our production company, this is what I always talk about, but then they can come to us and say, I don't have a grand villa, I can't afford it. Well, we'll put you there. If we can't afford to go to the top of this mountain, but we really want to have our DeWalt paint on the top of a mountain doing something crazy cool. We'll put you on top of the mountain. We can turn it on and do that. So it's innovating to reduce the gap between creating the type of content that people want. And I guess it's a double-edged sword, because if you can create that type of content for cheaper and for more efficiency, they start going, well, can we have this as well, please?
Yeah.
So it's like a double-edged sword. So you've got to show them that this can be done, but also not make them think everything is cheap and very, very good.
It's almost like we planned this, but that actually transitions us perfectly on to kind of talking about how we value content, or how we value this relationship, and then now how this has to work across audiences. So from the production company to the agency to the brand, and how we validate this. Is the more actually giving more? Is the personalization working? It needs to all be connected, otherwise it's just we did a job earlier this year and we gave them hundreds of thousands of assets almost, and because they didn't run any of it, it just sat there. We went to painstaking levels to create the adaptability of content, but again that went direct to brand because they wanted to take control of the rollout element. It just sat there. So actually it was a wasted endeavor. Still very relevant, and we could pick it up tomorrow and create an entire rollout with complete personalization across all of it. But because the talent density at the brand wasn't strong enough, it didn't work.
Yeah, I think trying to dull that double-edged sword on one side is convince the client that no, keep the budget the same. We'll just be more efficient of how we use it, and we'll give you more out of it. We can do more things faster, quicker, so we can plan and use our resources more effectively, and convince them that that's the better way to use their budget, rather than them saying like, we'll just drop another 10k. No, we don't need that, right? We'll just do that instead. But no, I think that's the better way to do it, and that's how we like to work. It's not trying to save money. It's how do we get better content? How do we be more efficient with the content we want to make?
I don't know where you're taking this, but I sort of feel that we've fallen into budget, and I don't think that's the problem.
Nice.
Go
on. Because I think wastage is the bigger problem.
Yeah.
Because everything's very focused on campaign. So this is what I need for this particular campaign, and because of mindsets, because of leadership teams, we're not thinking of the much bigger picture, and so what that's creating is a huge wastage of time, of silos, of learning, of insights. So instead of taking sort of a piece of modular content that you can then move and take learnings and then move on to the next piece that's part of a much bigger picture, where you could be saving so much time and communication, even internally, whatever it might be, you're sort of having to start from a blank page each time. So I would say that you could be losing 30% easily on a return on investment. So I actually think you can get more value if you think differently about it.
Yeah, I would agree. To hop in, I think the way that, so again, to use AI in a completely different way, we haven't talked about evaluation of content, we haven't talked about audience behaviors, but using AI from an eye tracking perspective. So it used to be, back in the day, we'd write a script, somebody at Kantar would take it, they'd test it in a room full of people, and they would decide whether that thing was going to work or not, and then an agency would come back to me and say, tweak this, tweak that, tweak the other, we'd go and shoot it. The ad that we made would then go and get tested in that same or a similar room of a focus group of people, and then it'd come into edit, and it was hell, because it's like death by 1,000 cuts off, because Doreen in Dorset doesn't like whatever you've done, we're going to throw another 3 days of edit at something to fix it. Now, AI can be used to help you in that scenario as well, and look at eye tracking and look at audience testing in a completely different way than it was before. And I think from that campaign versus long-term strategy look, yes, you can, we're going to do campaigns for forever, because that's what is ingrained in agency land. I think my part of the problem is not learning from last time. The number of times that I have done another shoot for the same brand 2 years later. In fact, I've done one this year. Last year I shot something with a certain influencer, celebrity person. This year went and did a very similar thing with the same budget, but actually it was shot on location in Plymouth, not on location in London, so therefore it cost more money because I had to get a crew to Plymouth. So actually in real terms it was less budget. But have we learned the lessons? I hope this isn't going out on the internet anywhere because somebody will totally understand what I'm talking about. But have we learned the lessons from last year? I would argue we haven't. And I think there's being able to use AI in that way of eye tracking, of audience research, of actually, if you watch the Diary of a CEO podcast, they test everything. They have a focus group of their users. They test everything before they even launch an episode. So they've made an episode, put it out to a group of people. They do the same with all their ads. They put like 100 test images on Facebook to test their ads before they put them out. And then by the time they get to that final piece of content, they know it's going to work because they've focus grouped it so much. So completely agree, but about less campaigns, more long-term thinking. But I think it's long-term thinking by actually not just an agency saying, because an audience has watched this for one frame, that counts as a view, so therefore its reach is 31 million people, but actually, tested it properly so that data plugs into the next one. I think that's where we need to get to. Less short-term thinking, more long-term, but the creative can change, but lessons need to be learned.
That generally helps us as well.
Of course it does. When does an agency ever share that information with production?
Yeah. But that's part of the validation thing. If we are able to make these branches in creative really quickly, that means that you are not far away from having that, which actually may trigger a conversion further down the line in some subsect audience really easily. I'm not sure how many production companies would talk like that, but I think that's where we should be talking both with the agency and with the brand to ensure that if you're doing that with your content, let's have it. Let's have it.
If you're spending the money, make sure the money gets an ROI.
Exactly, Because if you win, if we win, you win, you win, you win. Everybody wins in that scenario. I mean, I've gone through as much as I possibly can here, but I suppose if we look at, to wrap up, how would you, Johnny, and Chris, how would you approach this in the future in terms of a relationship through the funnel sort of thing? Would we be, are we continuing to do campaign by campaign? I think you're probably right. It's always going to happen. But do we have to then look at that other section? Campaign sits there, rollout sits here, and then maybe it's a conversation or a more integrated relationship with media, PPC, all the rest of those elements in order to generate the personalization level or those creative branches. Johnny, sorry. Chris, I'll go to you.
I think the way that we're trying to think about things is, and we've touched on it a lot just now, is collaboration with the same or similar people on either multiple projects or for multiple projects on a similar client. And that, I suppose, hub and spoke model for us is, allowing us to have the right conversations at the right time. We say you earlier on in the process, rather than get too late and be fed an image that you can't then achieve. And as the sort of everyone's learning at the same time, and as there's so much new all the time, I think keeping that open conversation and collaborative spirit in the creation of things is, for us at least, is really going to work for the foreseeable future. I think that working in silos, absolutely not. Even on a bigger agency scale, we started talking about the networks earlier, didn't we?
Yeah.
And if they can get out of their own silo somewhat to help sort of facilitate some of this, then I think everyone's going to be in a better place.
And Johnny, is this the return to maybe the retainer model potentially? If I know retainers can be driven by economic fields, but also value and all the rest of it. But if we decentralize risk to add innovation, is this a return to that?
You just brought something else there. So I think the biggest risk actually is not doing anything. and being safe. I think avoiding this and not riding it is the biggest risk, in my opinion. I really strongly believe that we need to challenge our thinking in terms of how we go about thinking about campaigns versus long term. And I think we're doing it the wrong way. I think that, like I've already said, there's too much wastage with campaigns. I think there's a huge trust issue. So, back in the day, you'd be on a retainer and agencies would get lazy. There's no question about that. So it's about finding the right partner. It's about collaborating like you've talked about. It's about ensuring that every single piece of content that's being delivered has the longevity, but also has the ability for that short form, that it can be repurposed and reused, that the metrics should be more about long-term reach and not campaign reach. They should be more about how can it be reused, how can it be repurposed, and it's about having that integrated approach where you're not just delivering content and like in the scenario that you've got where you've done 100,000 pieces of content and they've not done anything with it. It's having something agreed right at the beginning that we're only delivering this if you actually launch whatever you're launching, and so I think that changes things, but you have to have the ability to be able to pivot in there. Things change, so there has to be some agreement on being able to react, being able to pivot, etc., etc. But having the foresight of the bigger picture helps you think about actually how can that content be used differently, and also you'd find that the production company or the agency would be able to add a lot more value as well. So that's what I think has to fundamentally change.
I mean, I think we've talked about those elements as well. Like basically working together more is far more advantageous, especially where we're looking at reactive versus real time versus campaign versus all of the other things. I think it's probably a good time to hear from anybody here. Has anybody got any questions? P.S. I know you can smell the food, so. The corner?
I've got a couple.
Go on then.
I'll start with the first one. How have you built your AI model? How have you built, obviously there's ChatGPT and all like that. How have you basically built it to work with your company?
Do you want me to answer this? Yeah?
Yeah. I assume you mean tungsten, do you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So obviously you have proprietary models like ChatGPT, Midjourney, or whatever else you're going to use, chat model, or anything else like that. And then there are other companies out there and other people and lone warriors that put open source models out. And those open source models are allowed to be freely used for whatever purpose you would like them for. What makes it your own then is if you take that model and then you train that on data of your own to create another version. So one open source model like that is something called stable diffusion, which might be a word that some people have heard. That's just another model that can generate content, imagery or videos. And then people take that model and then they train it on more specific media and content, and then what comes out of that is a model that they can use for themselves. So we're taking one of these open source models and we're then training that data with super cloud computers and being able to create something that then we can take out, and we're generating stuff that we've put the parameters in that we know of the quality that Tungsten Media needs to work at. Why that is cool is for the two reasons. One is the controllable IP of the things you create that you can copyright, rather than if you make something with ChatGPT, an image, and you change an image, it's now public domain. If you create a mascot for your brand and then you send it out there and someone starts using that mascot and you've done it with GPT, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, you can't stop that person from doing it because it's public domain. Whereas if you make it with your own proprietary model, you do, especially by UK law, you are covered on being able to do that. Why it's awesome, for me, even better, is to be able to adapt to new models. That's what's so beautiful about the world, is that you get giant corporations like OpenAI, and then they put this model out, and they won't do another model for ages, a new image model. But you can guarantee every time that happens, a new open source version will come out of somebody else, and then a week later they're doing something. So we, as a company, can be so agile in terms of saying, yeah, we can just unplug that model, quickly train a new model, and put that new model back in, and we can increase the quality output of what we do by orders of magnitude every time it happens. And that's with image, with audio, with video, with eye tracking, with roto in VFX, everything. So that's, for us, that is the two main reasons: being able to own the content, which is hella important, and two, being agile with how we do it, so we can keep innovating and keep increasing the work that we do in the value. Because as a production company, at the end of the day, I want to make sure you guys have the best quality of work that you can get, and that you want to keep coming back because that quality is so good. So it's in our interest to be able to do that sort of thing.
It's that fine-tuning. It's the owning the fine-tuning elements for whatever the purpose is, but then adapting and building positive bias, essentially weights and biases, on top of that, whether that's brand, whether that's function, whether that's lighting, all of those components. So it's loads of Lauras. That's kind of how it works as well.
Is that enough like level of detail? I didn't want to go gobbledygook. Is that enough?
I'm recording this for personal benefits.
And then there's another question, right?
Yeah, I guess it's to all of you. And when you spoke about like the 100 to 150 assets, I see a lot of content being made and the company's really not knowing how to use it, and it's a massive barrier. And then obviously we're then sort of blamed because it's like, well, it's your content because you've not done this. Yeah. So I guess it's a question to all of you, and is there a way that we can get past this? How could we use AI to maybe help them? Or is there a new role that needs to be created and they need to be introduced to those companies? I guess it's a really big open question. What can we do to basically help all of us? Because it's a pain for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think this is relevant in the context of sort of wastage and what you're asking about there. I mean, just one thing that we've been doing, so we were with we've got a media partner, and they're using AI to be like hyper targeted around the placement of the assets, and they can do that research really early on. So they present us with heat maps of locations and specifics on whatever the media might be that's going to have the greatest effect for that specific target audience, and they can get really, really niche. So I think the earlier we're having those kind of conversations, the easier it's going to be to then go, okay, well, this is all that we need to create, and we could get excited and we can make whatever we want, but actually let's just get into the detail a bit earlier on through those kind of means, and cut the wastage and reduce. There's a lot of talk about the sort of energy that it takes to sort of do AI, isn't there? So that's not going away, but that means to be responsible, we should be cutting things down and being as sort of focused as we can.
I think it depends who your client is. So you're talking about a media agency who know what they're doing. You're talking about maybe an organic, a company who's putting content out organically or for PR that doesn't have a media agency behind it. And I think that comes back to the skills gap of not fully understanding what that content is actually doing. For example, anyone who's, as everyone in this room will know, asking to make a 1x1 of anything at the minute is an idiot, because it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't live anywhere anymore, or even a 4.5, you do 9/16s with 4.5 safe zones and all that kind of nonsense. So I think there's a skills gap thing in there. My answer would be we become the agency, obviously, and then we just get rid of the problem.
Anything, or you got something to add?
Well, that's a fair point, though, to be fair, but I think it's just trying to move away from a transactional process to layering on what we've talked about, which is more collaboration and being integrated into actually what's being tried to achieve here, and addressing the skills issue.
That's beautiful. I feel like actually all of us seem to agree on this point. As the production company, you could say we're kind of at the end of it, right? Even with the director, bringing the director on after as well, right? We try to say to the client, bring us in further up the stream, because from a production point of view, you come to us and say, we've got this idea, we've got this creative, we want to do this, we want to shoot like this. And we look at it and we go, have you thought about maybe trying to add it like this? And what if we did this little bit of technology? We could remove those 3 shots, save $5,000 there, do these 2 shots, and that costs you only 500 just to add that on. And then we could do this and add this, Because what you're doing then is collaboration. You bring in the expertise of how to run a shoot, the expertise of where to activate that shoot, what to put behind it and everything else. And I really love what you said about being less transactional and more layered in collaboration. So it's not always going to work, because like you said, you're going to have an organic client sometimes come and just be like, yeah, we want to shoot this, like, can you do it for us? And then they're like, cool, thank you very much, we're gonna put this out, and they do nothing with it. I guess it's really trying to have those conversations early on. That's to be the first thing we ask now. What are you doing with this content? Like, and then, you know, what are you open to kind of looking at the creative with us and seeing where we might be able to improve it or increase the efficiency, and we'll help you build out a plan.
It's about trust. In fairness, like less transactional is in you can shop at 5 different places, but once you build that trust, then actually the door's open, and the minute the door opens, you can immediately see what needs to be done. From our perspective, you know.
Less fracturing, you know. The more you can do together, the less fracturing as well, right? Nice, good questions, thank you.
I just wanted to ask, I know you mentioned earlier about the sort of carbon savings that you get from using virtual production and that kind of thing, but do you measure or do you like look at how the environmental impact of like the AI technology and that kind of thing you're using, and how does that come into play?
Yeah, absolutely. James?
Yeah. John? No, I mean, yes. At the moment, no, we are not tracking the AI element. But from a production point of view, AdGreen is like the home. And having said that, it's very different as well for long form. So we're starting to work, because of the fact that I think that content in general is a homogenous mix, whether it's going on television in 6 episodes, or whether it's marketing material, or whether it's social material. When it becomes marketing and advertising, we go into AdGreen world, which is AdNet Zero. And there you can track things like how much MDF you used, then offset that, and then you can either offset that or levy it, which means that if we can then, we don't currently, but if we can integrate it into the PIM software, we use StreamTime, if we can integrate it there, it can make decisions for us. So then it can say, rather than using 9mm MDF, actually use 3mm MDF and do this. You can then apply in that with travel, so that will help us in terms of deciding where ride sharing happens, or where actually if we flip the shoot on its head and do the location bit here and then come back here, we actually reduce travel by X%. So virtual production works in that way. From an electricity point of view, it's quite, I'll leave it on all day because it's okay. It's okay compared to the way we'd normally do it. And I think PowerShed's one is a super good example, simply because of the fact that we were up against we were triple bidding against 3 other companies, and the solution that every other company suggested was go to where the sun was guaranteed, because it was like early this year.
South Africa.
Portugal.
South Africa.
And that was the biggest win. You know, if we don't have to take the crew to South Africa, which is always like summer in January for fashion and all the rest of that stuff, we don't have to go on a plane anywhere. We're always winning. Always winning.
I get your question though, because this is more about AI that you're asking though, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this is something that the industry needs to deal with, because it's becoming bigger and bigger. And I don't have the answer, by the way, at all. But I'm glad you've asked the question. And
no.
But I'm seeing it more and more across, even websites. They want people wanting less design on a website. Because of hosting
the
costs.
Green Tech Gathering in Leeds, if you've ever been to that event, those guys are mission focused on development in the most green way, right down to volume of assets on a website at a certain point. That's super cool.
What I will say though, because I won't dodge your question fully, just like James. For AI, to try to give you an actual answer there, because I can formulate one, I hope. When you think about, again, when most people think about using AI, you're talking about OpenAI, Midjourney, or somebody else like that. They've got massive buildings full of machines that have got cards in there that are just pumping out constant electricity and heat. The reason why we want to have our own proprietary models is we're detached from that. We're not adding to the amount of electricity that they are using. Our models sit on a server in our other building over there. And we can be efficient with how we use that model, because when you want to use an AI model, you have to load it into a special place. I'll just keep it simple. A special place that it can be used very rapidly, because it's such a large thing to compute. Then, when you're not using it, you can run it back down. And so the amount of power that's being pulled from the machines at that point is very, very, very minimal. So we're, first of all, we're only trying to use it when we need to, so there's only a short spike of power. Secondly, we're detaching ourselves from places like Google, OpenAI, and relying on their huge data systems that are constantly pumping out electricity. While we don't have, now you said it, it's like, absolutely we should. Like, we don't have the exact data. I know we've got a plug that's in the back of the server that's constantly checking the amount of power pulling from it.
We could work it out.
But we could absolutely work it out. And I think it's a great point that I think a lot of clients would feel more comfortable as well, especially in the media agency world, knowing that, wow, okay, so you're actually not even using the big server farms, and you're only running things up when you absolutely have to need to.
It's like 3D back in the day. You can render on one machine, on one GPU. You can then slave render a room, or you could go out to a render farm. And we spin up super H1s if we need to, if time relies on it. So therefore, if the focus was sustainability first, then increase the timeline and then be very clever with how we fix the weights and biases of the LoRa and the prompting, so that there's less wasted there. So actually, we could work that.
It's a great question. I really like that. So it really makes me think about trying to be a bit more clear on that, about how much we use, and that being better than the traditional way of, like we said, flying people out to Portugal, South Africa, and just using.
Well, that's content for next month. Let's work that out.
Just from a director's perspective, I'd prefer Portugal or South Africa than Leeds.
Yeah, we thought
that before. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
There was one John's point about pitching for business. How long it takes to make a pitch deck, or such a manual process. That is like 80% of my job in terms of like trying to get business from the company, and the time it takes is so manual. It feels like every single pitch is completely different to each other. Are you guys utilising AI, or how are you guys using that? Because I just find no one useless for that kind of stuff. What's the process about that?
Yeah, well, let's call it, there's a lot of words being thrown around called like the agentic era. I don't know if you've heard that, talking about agents that can go off and do different things for you. And again, open source models are out there. You can also, there's no point in hiding anything. You can go to Manus AI. That's one tool that you could use if you wanted to, where you can have a chat with an agentic bot and say to it, here is my pitch ideas. Here are all of my images that I like to use, and here's the brand colors I like to use. Make me a presentation. Now, what I think people get stuck on is that they expect it to make you 100% presentation every time. But if I told you that you might spend 2 hours or 3 hours making a pitch deck, and I could reduce that time down to 30 minutes for you, you would jump off out of your chair, right? So the idea, if it got you to 80% there, and then you made the last tweaks how you needed to, how does that sound?
And if you were looking for, and I'm trying to think gamblers and whatever, but it just doesn't feel like you can get to use that. I end up having to edit them more, even though the brand colours and text and stuff like that. It takes more time than just starting your whole thing.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the ones that we use, again, I could have a conversation about it. We use like open source ones that you can actually use, and we do use those now. And again, they get us 70 to 80% of the way there.
The difference between useless and magic is training.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And I don't mean training as like you have to learn this or that, either. Training the bloody AI.
Yeah.
Because you go into ChatGPT as a standard and try and get it to do what you want with a single prompt is a waste of time. You'll get a beautiful image, but you're not going to get what you actually wanted, and that's the point. It's agnostic across everything. If you train it right, it will work. If you don't, it won't. Same as an employee.
When did you last use Gamma? Out of curiosity.
But maybe it's probably down to the training things.
We call them brand brains. So, if a client comes to us and says we want, or if we're working for a client and we're doing pitch decks or whatever, we'll train a bunch of their brand first into a model that then, if I ask it for a kitchen and it's for Morrison's, it knows to make a certain type of kitchen that looks like Morrison's, and it knows it needs green branding and yellow branding automatically off the bat. And then, so it's guardrails, making guardrails. It is out there, it's possible. Like what you're asking for, it's doable right now. We've had examples and we've shown that to clients already as well.
I've got bought when it came
Yeah. Have you tried Manus as well? Again, it's proprietary. I mean, you can't change it, but it's one that we found is good if you need to use it as well.
We
Manus.
run an event, the Tungsten lads run an event every 8 months-ish called Promo, which is essentially come in and see how we do it and lift up the hood and we'll do it together.
Yeah.
And that's probably a good one as well.
Yeah,
anything like that.
Yeah, well, there's enough success for everybody. There's no point in hiding any of this information, because if you really want to, you could go out there and find information and you could figure it out yourselves. There's no point in hiding it, you know. It's just
we don't all have an Andy though.
We try our best. But yeah, so it's totally doable. So yeah.
I think we're gonna have to wrap up.
Yeah, I think we're about
because I really need a wee.
That's it. This is not enough stop other than James's wee.
but the food is also ready, and we've talked enough. Thank you very much, guys.
Do you want to mention
guys?